I'm Carol from Sunbury, Ohio. I'm a Republican, but I don't care who does the job as long as the job gets done. That's why I like Sherrod Brown. He stood up to both parties on China and worked with Republicans to fight fentanyl because Sherrod fights for Ohio. That's leadership.
Paid for by friends of Sherrod Brown.
Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to anfieldindexpro.com and get started today.
Hello everyone and welcome to Post-Match Raw here on Anfield Index Pro. Harry Sethi here. I'll be your stand-in host for tonight with Mr. Downey taking some time out to help us pick through Liverpool's 2-1 win over Chelsea at Anfield this Sunday afternoon, which sees Arne Slot's Reds return to the top of the Premier League table. And joining me tonight to go through the match, pick out their key talking points, definitely cover Ref Watch as well, from what was at times an intense contest and at times a match where very little seemed to happen. I'm joined by the AI scouted duo of Karl Matchett and Dave Hendrick. Dave, I'll go to you first on the game. We're speaking just before we hit record there around, at times, not a lot transpired in that match, but yet we end it with the feeling that there's a lot to talk about, and perhaps some of it will be about performances, some of it will be about some of the actual, of course, match action, but quite a lot of it, I imagine, will also be about some of the off-the-pitch topics, well, actually not off the pitch, but refereeing, some of the managerial antics as well. What were your impressions following that game and seeing the Reds go back to the top of the table?
Yeah, look, I mean, the bottom line is the result is what's most important, and we got the result we wanted. We got a good 3 points at home to a team that are in form, that came into this game with one of the best attacks in the league. And without playing anywhere close to our best level, with multiple starters missing from the beginning of the game, we put in the performance that we needed. It wasn't the performance that we would have liked. We would have liked to have gone out there, controlled the game, dominated the ball, and opened them up multiple times and had a nice, comfortable afternoon. But that wasn't the game we got. What we got was a really hard-working Liverpool performance in a game where Chelsea had more of the ball, and in that first half in particular, prior to our opening goal, the commentators were saying, "Oh, well, Chelsea are the better team here." And I was watching it thinking, I don't really understand what you're talking about, because yes, they're having more of the ball, but they're having it in their defensive third and the middle third because we're letting them have the ball there. I didn't feel at any point like we weren't controlling our own destiny in that game. Like, it's one thing having possession and doing nothing with it when you're ahead and you're just trying to see out the clock. But at 0-0, and even when they were behind, a lot of the Chelsea possession had no actual purpose to it. Therefore, it's pointless, and we were letting them have the ball where we wanted them to have the ball. Like, they've created very little of note in that game. They had 2 shots on target. One is the goal. The other is this very simple save for Queeving. It's not like you're coming away from that thinking, oh, Chelsea had loads of chances in that one. Like, Queeving's absolutely won us that game there. That wasn't the case. They had bits of chances. They had, speculative opportunities. But I felt like we were always kind of in control of the game. And when we really stepped up our level, we got the penalty. Then we got another penalty. We got our second goal. We could have had another goal after that. And, despite the fact that it was very much 11 Liverpool players against 12 Chelsea players, including the referee, we've come away with 3 points, and we have to be happy with that, especially given Arsenal lost to a Bournemouth team that we beat 3-0. And City very much struggled to beat a Wolves team that we beat last time out. And they look shaky at the moment. So all things considered, we have to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Unsure just how many times John Stones can come up the clutch player for them. You imagine can't be many more. Karl, bringing you in just to talk about the game as well. As Dave was alluding to there, like players missing from our first choice team, international duty taking its toll on others as well, and Chelsea in form coming to Anfield. So I think listening to your scouted pod ahead of the game, there were ways in which they could have hurt us. There were some areas where we were perhaps a little bit concerned about how they might try and exploit different aspects of our shape. But what was your opinion on the game when the final whistle went?
I think my first one is a surprise, not necessarily the match, but myself, because I've been doing our post-match Raw podcasts for a number of years now, and until today I didn't realise it stood for Referees Are Wankers, which is a nice surprise for me to finally understand and get on board with. Look, I mean, Chelsea did not reach 1.0 for their expected goals for the game. So they had a lot of the ball, they had a lot of possession, a lot of half-decent territory, but that doesn't really do anything. You have to, as you both just rightly pointed out, you have to do things with the ball to make any kind of worthwhile of that kind of nature of performance. And that is kind of what Chelsea have been this season. They've been really controlled, and they've been really or attempting to be very, very dominant and dictate where the game is played, but without actually then going on and taking that next step. And then where we've seen them be kind of erratic and try to, score 4 and concede 2 in a game is where they've made those subs later on and really gone for it against lesser sides. They didn't really go to that next step today against us, perhaps because we were better in midfield than some of the other sides they've played, or perhaps just because they wanted to keep that back door locked as such and not give us too many chances to counter. But in whatever the reasons, they didn't really go all out, let's say, on the attacking side of things. They didn't necessarily put all their attacking alternatives off the bench onto the pitch at once, that kind of thing. So it was kind of mostly the performance expected from Chelsea, if maybe a little bit more ratty, shall we say, at times. And from us, I thought mostly it was okay. Like, we played quite well without being great. We were pretty good shape off the ball a lot of the time. It was, I think, quite comfortable when we were ahead. Obviously, there's always the chance while it's only a 1-goal lead that they can get back in it, and that's fine. But then we showed the ability and mentality and fortitude to go ahead and just find another goal ourselves again. So, happy days.
Yeah, just to stick with you, Karl, let's focus on lineups then, in terms of, because we'll come to Ref Watch and have a discussion about John Brooks. He doesn't appear in the Chelsea lineup. However, you would have, could easily have fooled you given some of the performance that he put in this evening. But on the Liverpool lineup, a couple different faces, some that we were expecting, some that, of course, that I think were perhaps the byproduct of decisions around the run that we're about to go on, and also the international football and some of the toll that travel could have taken. But we've got Queven Kelleher in goal, Trent, Ibu, Van Dijk, Robbo as the back four, Gravenberch in midfield, this time partnered by Curtis Jones, Salah, Szoboszlai, Gakpo and Diego Jota up top. On the bench, just to have a look at this as well, we had Nunes, Diaz, Gomez, Alexis McAllister, Yaros, Kwanzaa, Tsimikas, Morton, and Endo. What did you make of that lineup? I mean, I think obviously we're expecting Queven to come in, given Alisson's absence. The only two changes there really are Jones and Gakpo coming in. Sensible, given what we're now expected to go through over the next however many games?
Yeah, sensible in terms of obviously the distance travelled and when they got back and so on, but also because I think the two who came in, Jones and Gakpo, were, let's say, the ones who have been pushing hardest for starting spots. I think it's not just important, obviously, that they get game time, as and when we want people to stay fit and so on, but to show that when they are playing well, when they get their chance, when they are taking their chances, that's rewarded with additional starts. It's not forget that before the international break, obviously we played Crystal Palace and Jones was handed the start for that one, Gakpo was handed the start for that one. So this isn't necessarily just a rotation in and out. This is people are playing well and have been rewarded with an additional start. I think it's, it is tempting, of course, to look forward and say we've got really big games coming up. And I'd expect that against Arsenal, for example, in a week's time, we might see Diaz back in the starting lineup. And if McAllister's fit and ready, he's absolutely going to be in there. But Jones then gives Slot a decision to make over who he might play instead of. And that's what we want. That's what we need, is 3, 4, 5 players in each line of the team, capable and in good form to come in and play in the side and really, really make a case to stay there. I think that's an important aspect of that rotation or changes in the lineup to note.
Yeah, and of course, we'll definitely be touching upon Curtis's performance, some of the moments he had in the game. I thought he fully deserved that standing ovation as he was going off. And we'll speak about Cody's game as well, because I thought he had an interesting one. And Dave, bringing you in on the Chelsea lineup, and getting your view, obviously having listened to scout it ahead of the match. They went with Sanchez in goal, Gusto, Colwill, Adebayo, James, Caicedo, Lavia, Sancho, Palmer, Madueke, and Nico Jackson up top as well. On the bench, they had Pedro Neto, they had Badiashile, Enzo Fernandez, Vega, Nkunku, Bettinelli, Disasi, Dewsbury Hall, and João Felix. At times when you're going through that team, you do, of course, actually have to remind yourself about some of the depth of quality that they do have. And I thought one of the interesting things that you mentioned on the scouted pod was how many teams have come unstuck against them just by the fact that they do have different players players on the bench rather, who can ask you different questions when they bring them on. Were you surprised at all by that lineup and how they went with the setup today?
Yeah, I was surprised that Reece James started. This is a guy we haven't seen this season. And even if you look back at last season, he played, I think, like 420 minutes or something in the entirety of the Premier League season. He made 2 appearances off the bench I think he got hurt originally away to Everton in December, middle of December. That's having missed the start of the season. He played against us, he got injured, he missed a bunch of games, he came back. I think he played like 6 games, got suspended, came back, played 2 games, got injured again, and then missed basically the entire rest of the season. But he played like 2 very short sub-appearances in their like second and third last games or something like that. About 400 minutes.
I think it's over 500 days since he's played 90 minutes in the Premier League. I think I was reading.
This is the thing. Like, if you even look at, actually, I'm just looking at his performances last year. 76 minutes, misses 7 games. This is just the league. Misses 7 games, 6 minutes, 23, 77, 64, 73, suspended for a game, 45, 27. That's the 10th of October. He doesn't play again until the 11th of May. He plays 11 minutes and then 19 minutes. And then he misses the final game of the season because he got sent off in that 19-minute appearance. Like, the lad has not played football, like real meaningful minutes, in an awfully long time. So I was very surprised to see him start. I was also surprised to see Lavia start, when you consider how much of last season Lavia missed. Consider that he hasn't been available for much of this season so far. And I thought the 2 of them played quite well, to give them their credit. Like, they're both very, very good footballers. You can see why we had interest in Romeo Lavia. I do think Caicedo Lavia works a little bit better than Caicedo Enzo, or even Enzo Lavia. I don't like that Enzo Lavia midfield, or Enzo Caicedo midfield. I don't think that they blend well. But I thought this pairing worked. And I thought in the first half, like, that midfield pair worked really well for them. And both fullbacks worked well. And they had a measure of security about them. Like, in other games this season, we've seen them be quite easy to play through. We've seen them being a little bit sluggish at the back, a little bit lapse in some of their concentration, whereas I thought today they were a bit more switched on. And I think, James coming back in helps that. Gusto maybe prefers it on the left because it opens the field up for him a little bit more. I thought he did quite well over there. Not as well, I didn't think, when he moved to right back when James went off. But those were the only 2 real surprises. I mean, we thought Tosin would come in for Fofana. It was James coming in for Cucurella and Gusto moving across. We thought Viega might start. And then we all assumed Enzo would start in midfield, but as with Alexis and with Lucho, coming back from South America, just decided to give him a bit of a rest. But overall, their team was close to what we would have expected it to be, especially that front four. That's the front four that has been starting, and then you're seeing the likes of Neto and Nkunku come off the bench for them and give them a very different look. And I thought, we'll talk about them, but I thought when Neto came on, I did think he caused us quite a few problems. But, yeah, I mean, look, when you've spent well over £1 billion on players, you would want to be able to put out a strong match day 20. Like, you'd really want to be. But ultimately, we're just better than them. So it wasn't a game that I went into with real fear. I felt we'd win this game. I called it 2-1 on Scouted. And, I think the game played out the way a lot of us would have expected it to, where Arne, well, to be fair, I think Arne did change just the way we were playing a little bit, but I think them coming and having as much of the ball is kind of expected. He's from the Guardiola coaching tree. Like, he's going to try and do a lot of pep things. And that's what we saw.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
No, absolutely. And one name I did leave out there from the squad lineups I wanted to talk about before we dive into the actual match action, because no doubt we'll come back to him again, was not entirely sure what the transfer fee was, but John Brooks this evening. Dave, would you like to maybe give me your thoughts on how he approached what's his job again? Officiating a football match in the Premier League.
I genuinely thought that was one of the worst refereeing the performances that I've seen. And we've seen a lot of them. Like, we've seen a lot of really bad ones, whether it's against us or in games that we're just watching. That was awful from minute one. Like, even before we get into the big decisions of the game, there's just, like, he was allowing their players to pull and drag our ones when they were running. There was Reece James fell over and he gave him a free kick. Gakpo hadn't made contact. Mo's trying to cross the ball. Colwell has his arm fully extended out. It hits his hand, which is like 3 feet from his body, and it's play on. Just mind-blowing. And, like, we'll get the penalty in that penalty that wasn't. But then, second half, there's just constant poor decisions all the way through up until that last gasp moment where Darwin simply outmuscles Viega. It's a perfect shoulder challenge. And it's not just that he gives them the free kick and allows them one more crack at going down and scoring. He actually denies us a goal-scoring opportunity. Because if Darwin gets to that ball, which is very close to him, and he's back up quicker, he's got a shooting opportunity or the opportunity to draw a defender and slip a teammate in. We had a 3v2 advantage there. So, like, these are big decisions that he's just getting wrong all the time. The handball on Colwell is a blatant handball. It's a bookable handball. His hand is a mile out from his body. I just don't understand how that man can look at himself and think, I've refereed well today. I've put my best foot forward and refereed that straight down the middle.
Yeah, I think it takes. I mean, I think one thing that's been remarked on a lot by everybody watching Liverpool this season has been, I suppose, how calm, how composed Arne Slot's been in general, and how he's handled everything so far. And to see him getting that animated on the touchline, I think Karl mentioned before we started recording and speaking actually that if we had Jurgen on the touchline, we probably would be dealing with Pep Lijnders.
Jurgen gets sent off today. 100% Jurgen gets sent off.
Jurgen's head explodes all over Anfield pitch today.
Yeah, he left at the right time.
Yeah, and so I do. Part of me does hope he's watched that somewhere on the sofa and practically hurled something at the TV at points. But let's dive into the match action itself, and bit of a disrupted sort of start to the game. I think on 5 minutes it appeared as though Caicedo actually was down and in quite a lot of trouble. I think it was sort of a knee-on-knee challenge between him and Curtis. He was down for a while. Then Toshin picks up a yellow card, like dragging back Jota. It seemed at one stage like quite similar to, I think this was the one, quite similar to the Saliba pullback yesterday, which he got sent off for. But I think Colwell was covering back, which made it a bit easier on this one, on this occasion. Then Jota, I think, following that, obviously was down for a little bit, holding his ribs. It seemed like, because it did appear as though Tosin had fallen on him. That's the last thing you wanted to see, and we'll speak about him sort of soldiering on. But of course, later on, he did have to come off. And Sancho on 12 minutes was played into the box. I think it was a long ball, like pretty direct long ball from Sanchez, but it looked to lay the ball back, and I think it went to Gusto, who then launched it into the stands as well. Again, all quite quiet in the start of this game. Possession, as you mentioned, both of you, for Chelsea, but not necessarily being too threatening with it. Just recycling the ball very often amongst the back. Then on 18 minutes, that nearly a sort of a howler from Sanchez got what seemed like a pretty simple back pass from Reece James, but then was closed down by Gakpo, and luckily for him, the ball just ricocheted straight to him on the rebound. Again, I think at this point, Neville sort of really, as he wound himself up, I was watching it on Sky Sports today, and we will get to Neville as well, because I think at times he has tried to be like more the objective side. I say try there. Today, I felt it was a pretty shameless display at times. You could see the way in which his voice was getting particularly animated when there was even the slightest hint of an opportunity for those in blue, but then didn't seem to be able to match those levels when Liverpool then actually responded. On 22 minutes, I think Chelsea had a corner. Trent headed it from I think it was nearly near post. Madueke pretty easily left Robertson in a heap and got inside the box on 24 minutes. His cross did get to Palmer, but there wasn't really a clean connection from him. And I think we'll speak to sort of how we kept him fairly quiet today, which is an achievement given the form that he's been in to start the season. 26 minutes, I think this is one that really wound me up actually on the John Brooks ref watch. It plays an initial advantage for Salah being fouled, and then about 8 seconds later, there's a shout for a potential penalty. I don't think this was a penalty on first watch anyway, but completely neglects to take the play back for the earlier foul. And on 27 minutes, there is a penalty for Liverpool, and Neville is decrying that maybe the referees felt a bit of pressure here initially before the replay shows, of course, that it is pretty clear contact from Colwell and Jones, and Liverpool have a genuine, legitimate penalty. Jackson gets booked. I think all sorts of stuff was going on, actually, when people trying to put Salah off. But then on 29 minutes, Salah makes it 1-0, just does his usual technique when there's pressure and absolutely hammers it into the net. So, Dave, just want to come to you there, those opening 30 minutes or so. I guess on the 30-minute mark, the only slight update to give you is that, of course, Jota came off and was replaced by Nunes. But what did you make of those opening 30 minutes and us eventually getting the breakthrough with that penalty?
I'd forgotten the moment you mentioned where Mo gets fouled, the ref plays advantage, and within 8 seconds, Mo was on the floor again.
Yeah.
He's waving it away. Like, that should be brought back for a free kick. The offside has led to nothing, or the advantage has led to nothing. And it should have been brought back for a free kick to us. Mo did try, I think, and buy the penalty, but you've seen them given. Like, this is the thing, like, the commentators on the coverage I was watching, they were like bigging up everything Chelsea was doing, and they weren't doing anything. Like, they'd had one shot in that 30-minute spell. It wasn't on target. It was, it wasn't threatening from them. They weren't able to do anything against us. They were having the ball and they were just moving it side to side, and, when they'd get into an advanced position, we'd shut them down, they'd move it backwards, and then they'd give the ball away. We should have been better, I think, with our own possession. I think we could have been more careful with the ball at times. But overall, like, it was a very quiet first 30 minutes in a lot of ways, and including the crowd, by the way. The crowd didn't really get themselves up and roaring until that Mo penalty was waved away. And then the crowd were going nuts by the time we got our penalty. Like, they did kind of sustain a wave. And they sort of dipped off again. And, I know it's 4:30 on a Sunday, but this is a big Premier League match. This is a Big Six rival. This is a club that, since Roman Abramovich bought them in 2003, we've had a rivalry with. Like, we've had that bitterness with them for a long, long time, over a vast number of managers on both sides, over different players that have played for both teams. There's a significant online rivalry between Liverpool fans and Chelsea fans. Not that necessarily means anything for match-going fans, but, like, I did expect that the crowd would be a bit more amped up for it, but they were a little bit flat. And again, one of the commentators did point out, like, our one defeat so far this season, the one game we've dropped points in, was after an international break, a home game, where the team was a little bit flat and the crowd was a little bit flat. And I did feel like we were a little bit flat today. The crowd was flat as well, and I had hoped that for a big game like this, they'd be more up for it. But I thought when we scored, we deserved to go in front. Like, I did think we were the more threatening team. We were the team with more purpose to what we were trying to do. And I felt like you could see slight little tweaks that Arne had made in our team, where we weren't pressing as high, we weren't pressing as aggressively. We were almost saying to them, we're just going to let you give the ball away. We're going to let you have it until you give it away. And when you give it away, we're going to cut you open. Now, we didn't get many good counter-attacking opportunities, but I didn't feel at any point in that opening 30 minutes like they were going to score or that they had a number on the day.
Do you think anything, because I think this has obviously been discussed actually about the atmosphere at times, and I've been this season and thought it was great against Bournemouth, and I think at times it can, as you say, sort of have these lulls. Do you think at all the way in which we approached the start of the game, and actually large chunks of the game, where we were happy to sit off, as you mentioned there, we didn't press in some of the ways in which we have done this season, and just backed ourselves to, like, allow Chelsea to have the ball and really, like, convince ourselves that we were going to do things in transition? Do you think that had any part to play in the atmosphere?
Yeah, it absolutely could have. Because, when you look back at the last 9 years under Jurgen, a lot of the time when the crowd would really get going, it would be off the back of him and his, gesticulations and his rousing of the crowd from the sideline. And Arne doesn't do that. It's not his bag, and that's absolutely fine. So it would begin with Jurgen, it would filter through the crowd, and then it would force through the players, and we get that energy. And that's how you'd see us just ramp up and overwhelm teams. And I think the players are getting used to a new way of playing. I think the crowd has to get used to a new way of playing. We haven't been a patience-first team since the first 6 months under Rodgers, which were a disaster. And then he did away with that, and he went to that blitzkrieg model with Suarez as the focal point. And we were a very exciting, front-footed, aggressive team. couldn't defend to save our lives, but we were very good going forward. And when Jurgen came in, he really did lean into that. And even in the years where we won the title, won the Champions League, and we were a lot more controlled and, we were winning games 1-0, 2-1, 2-0, whatever, there was still an energy about the team. Like, we still defended with a lot more gusto, whereas now you feel like we're defending a lot more cleverly, we're blocking off more passing lanes, we're more in a specific shape, and we're trusting players a bit more 1v1. I think this season you're seeing Trent really step up defensively and really rise to the challenge, whereas on the other side, I don't think Robertson is. I thought Nkunku roasted him that entire first half. But Trent, I thought, did a great job on Sancho. And by leaving those 1v1s, now our midfield three can sit in front of the centre-backs, and it makes it a lot harder to play through the middle when we block in. Where we're easier to play through the middle against is when we actually expand our game, when we try and press high. There's a little bit too often where our press gets played through and our midfield is left a bit exposed. But, first half today, I thought the defensive shape looked really good. I thought the midfielders, while struggling to get a real stranglehold on the ball, were good off the ball for the most part.
And Karl, bringing you in just for the rest of the first half there. So, as I mentioned, Nunes came on for Jota on 30 minutes. Hopefully that's nothing too serious. I haven't seen anything since the match ended around his condition. And on that sort of theme of patience and sort of like, again, not always picking the risky pass when if we think it's inappropriate. I think Slot's mentioned that a lot. And sort of an example, I suppose, of a little bit of that hesitancy. On 32 minutes, we thought we were 2-0 up. Actually, Gakpo arrived at the far post. It was a Salah cross. But actually, it turned out that Jones had played Salah in just a little bit too late. And so Salah was already offside by the time when she played that cross. And I did feel, actually, obviously by the end, Curtis had a really strong performance. But there were a couple of occasions in that first half, and actually mainly in the first half, where I thought that there was a little bit of that hesitancy to play perhaps what looked like an obvious ball a bit earlier. But again, perhaps that's just been sort of part of what's been coached into him over the years. 34 minutes, Jackson, I think, has a sort of half chance, really, and looks to go for the near post, and it sort of goes wide, and he appeals for a corner for a while, but there's nothing doing. A quick break on 36 minutes, and Dom's at the end of it, but pretty tame shot that goes straight to Sanchez. On 40 minutes, there is Chelsea have it in our third, but there wasn't nothing that really came to the end of quite a long move. On 42 minutes, there's another break and play again. Talk about that disruption as Jackson was on the floor. I think Ibu actually ended up putting it out. I think it was some sort of back injury that he had from falling earlier in the game. And of course, this is all adding up more time for the end of the first half. And then on 47 minutes, another penalty for us that we thought anyway, in terms of Sanchez bringing down Jones inside the box, actually completely poleaxing him, to be honest. Penalties given to us by one John Brooks as a yellow card for Sanchez. And then VAR intervenes and asks Mr. Brooks to go over to the monitor, which typically means that they think he's made a mistake. And they show these replays, and I think on quite a few of the replays, you can see that perhaps, Sanchez does get to the ball first. My only issue with it was that he then cleans out the player who's otherwise running through to have a shot on goal, and did struggle to understand how what looked like it would be a free kick anywhere else on the pitch was deemed not to be a foul. That penalty's ruled out for us. And then on 51 minutes rather, this is on the first half, Palmer, who's pretty much been anonymous actually to this point, finally has the ball on his left foot and tries a bit of a curling effort, but it sails over. And right before the halftime whistle, Dom is booked for a pretty clear foul on Palmer, and he was actually the first one of our lot to get a yellow in this game. So, Karl, just give me your thoughts again. You can touch upon some earlier moments in the first half there and some players who stood out to you, but sort of how the half petered out and and that second incident around the penalty that was given and then rescinded.
Yes, I mean, I think of the whole game, that second penalty, or second not penalty as it was, is probably the talking point. If we just desperately look at the decisions that were given and things that happened in the match, that's probably the biggest talking point in itself. I think there's a lot of ways to look at it, but ultimately, first of all, I'd say if any outfield player puts the amount of contact on a goalkeeper that Sanchez did on Jones, the foul is always going against the outfield player there, every single time. Like whether he heads the ball into the back of the net and the keeper gets nowhere near it, or the keeper catches it and then drops it under that amount of pressure and it's poked in or whatever. If there's that kind of contact, it's always going to be given as a free kick in favour of the goalkeeper. Yet, in the opposite way round, when it's the goalkeeper making that amount of contact, I don't get it, personally. I think this was a stonewall penalty. I think the contact there is absolutely stupid. But in this way around, it's because it's a goalkeeper, it's allowed. Now, take the fact that it's a goalkeeper out of the equation. If a defender goes in for a tackle like that, slides in to make a tackle, as Sanchez did, misses the ball with his front foot, it sort of hits his thigh and then bounces back past him and he wipes out the player. Is that a free kick?
Every single time.
Every single time, no matter where that is on the pitch. The amount of red cards, never mind fouls, that we've seen, or yellow cards being given for overly aggressive play because a player wins the tackle but follows through and ends up dumping the opposition player on the floor, is ridiculous. I don't like that being a foul, but it is.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at anfieldindexpro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, anfieldindexpro.com. Join today.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.